Hey, Paul, you played on one of the all-time great college football teams at SC. What was the atmosphere like in the tunnel before every game for you and your teammates?
The crazy thing is, everyone on that tunnel knew before we walked out on the field that we were going to win.
So, Paul, how important is self-belief in life and in everything we do?
Self-belief is critically important in manifesting what we want. Because we may have the talent, we may have the skill, but if we really don't believe that we can accomplish what we set out to do in whatever endeavor we're going into, we won't be as successful as we could have been.
So you, again, have played on one of the great all-time teams at SC. How did you guys build that belief? How did it start? It's easy when you're on the field and you're up a bunch of points and everybody has belief when they're winning. But how did that belief start, let's say, right from day one of training camp?
Practice, lifting weights, running routes against air, throwing, catching, film room, interactions with all the players, holding each other accountable, right? Leadership, leaders developing and elevating on the field and holding the other players accountable, and that chemistry that evolves. And then you have that leads to maybe a good practice one day, and then you have a really good scrimmage, and then you start the season, you have a good game and you win, you're 1-0, and then you just build on that, right?
And there's an analogy for that in life, which is that I think people it's not like flipping a switch, now I believe in myself. It's you do the little thing, which leads to the next little thing, and as you build up on these things, then the confidence starts to slowly grow. And so that self-belief isn't self-delusional belief, because there are people who are delusionally self-believing.
Sure.
Oh, I'm going to be a
Rocket
champion
scientist.
or whatever, and they're never going to be, because it's just something it's this fantasy they've made up for themselves.
Yeah.
But it's really kind of little by little doing the work. Would you agree with that, or is that what you meant by what you guys were doing at SC?
Yeah, but when you start, for sure, because if you don't have that when you start, you'll never have these small successes that compound on one another, right, and that leads you to be, the team or the individual that you can possibly be. And gosh, I remember when I was first recruited and signed a letter of intent at USC. I went to all the spring practices, and I went in the film room and started watching film before I ever showed up on campus, and did that all summer before training camp started. And those are the things, the building blocks that allow you to have those little tiny successes, right, and build belief a little bit at a time. So maybe in the film room you see something, and it finally clicks that you are able to translate it onto the practice field, where you finally make that right reading, get to the right receiver. Right. It's those things that give you confidence, and then the coaches give you confidence, right, in validating your actions and how you're performing and how you're playing. So it's all these little pieces that come together that evolve into this self-belief, which is hugely important.
Yeah, and there's a saying, practice like you play and play like you practice, which is like if you really take it seriously, then your game will actually be an easier experience than the practice was, because you practice so hard. And then when the game comes in, it just becomes all about almost like muscle memory, because you've done it so many times, it just comes right out of what you were doing in practice.
And that's the issue with sports or anything entertainment oriented, right? Singers, dancers,
right, when you're going to be on a stage.
When you're on a stage, okay, you got to do it now.
Right.
Okay, you've got all this practice time, you got to go do it now. Go do it. Some people have a hard time with that. Right. Everyone's watching, this really matters. Whereas if it doesn't matter, you're more relaxed, it's okay, hey, we're just having fun, it's easier to be relaxed. But when you have to go do it, that's where the repetition and all that stuff that you just mentioned is so critically important. Right. Because then when you get out there and play, like I recall trotting onto the field nervous, before every game.
Yeah, that's natural.
Yeah, natural, right? It's kind of that adrenaline, that anxiousness of, you want to perform, right? This is the moment. But once you get the snap from center, and have a couple plays, you go, okay, or getting hit, just getting knocked around, and that just gets you
Get you into
relaxed,
the flow.
gets you in the flow.
Now, most people going through life aren't going to get hit, hopefully.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. So I'll create an analogy for myself. When I've done a little bit of public speaking in my life, and I've had moments up there in front of a group of folks where I was terrible. I was nervous and I couldn't really get across the point I was trying to make. And there are other times when it flowed, and I felt really good about what I said and how it came out. And I think the common denominator from the ones where I did well versus the ones where I didn't do as well is when I went up there and talked about something I was very comfortable with and really knew the subject matter and wasn't trying to stretch into things that I didn't really know that much about, it came out, right? And even if, maybe sometimes a lifetime of preparation came into that moment when I was talking about something I really knew about. But when I would go up and try and talk about it in a way or about something that I wasn't perfectly familiar with and I hadn't really maybe done my homework, now I'm up in front of a group of people trying to figure it out as I'm in front of this group of people, and it just inevitably would kind of fall apart. So I think that's kind of in a different way the same idea, which is when you do the preparation, however that preparation is done, you're just going to end up performing in a much better way. And that's in sales, that's in sports, that's in really anywhere where you're going to be up in front of a group of people.
I was asked to give the Scholar Athlete Response at the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame annual awards banquet at the Waldorf Astoria in front of 2,000 people, a black tie event.
Wow. And you were what, like 22 years old?
21.
21.
Yeah. It was after, just before I was 22. Wow. It was right after, actually before the Rose Bowl in December of '79. Yeah. And so I was back there, Coach Robinson, my dad came back, a massive event. Chris Schenkel, the iconic broadcaster, was the master of ceremonies.
Right.
The dais was, you had, 100 people up there from, generals to congressmen and whatever. Right. And so give it credit to John Robinson. He introduced me to a speech communication professor named Ed Bodakin. And Ed spent some time with me to pull out of me what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. Right. And just worked with me on that. And so I crafted the speech with his guidance and I memorized it. Right. It's about a 2-minute speech. I memorized it, which you're not supposed to do.
Yep, I would say don't do that.
You're not supposed to do that.
Yep.
Right? Because you're not natural, it doesn't flow. But I had it cold.
Right, because you practiced.
Practiced it. I practiced it.
Right.
Practiced it. Even up until the time I gave the speech. Right. I was in my room practicing it, right? Yeah. And I got up there, delivered it flawlessly. Right. Chris Schenkel's first comment after, I was walking to sit down, he says, "Great job, Paul. And did you notice he did it without even a note?"
Right.
I had my paper there in case I got stuck, but I never
go down and start reading.
I never looked down.
Right.
I always looked. Right. And that's to your point, preparation. Yeah. If you're prepared for those big moments, you can do it.
Yeah, and I think the big point of this is bottom line is this. Is self-belief is something that we all know is humongously important, and I think people get caught up in it it's this sort of mysterious thing of developing self-belief. And really the self-belief, in my opinion, comes back from everything we've just said, which is when you prepare, when you do the work, when you do the work, when you do the work, now it becomes natural. Yeah, you get confidence. And then that's where the self-belief comes from, because you've put in the work. It's when you dream it up but then don't do the work that self-belief crumbles, because there's no foundation underneath.
Yes. You do need the foundation. And then when we look back on those teams, which is how we started this conversation, right. 1978, 79, when we walked through the tunnel, I looked to my right, I had Ronnie Lott. I looked to my left, I had, Marcus Allen, Charles White, and Anthony Munoz, and Keith Van Horn, and Brad Buddy.
And those dudes did the work. Back to the thing. They did the work.
All did the work. We all pushed each other. Right. And because we were so talented on both sides of the ball, when we practiced, it was like, in many respects, more challenging than the game itself, right? So then when we got to the game was like, hey, this is fun, this is great.
I think it's an important thing for people who are maybe more talented than their peers to understand that they set the tone for the rest of the group. because people are looking at them as the star, and it could be the star salesperson in a company or a star athlete on a team or whatever, is they have to be held accountable, because if they're not held accountable, then who else is going to be? But if they're held accountable, then everybody else will be, because they're the star, right? And that's kind of what you guys had going on, was like, how could a third stringer not work hard if Ronnie Lott's busting butt every day?
We had so many superstar players. You know, there's I think 3 in the NFL Hall of Fame on that team, on the 79 roster, and 4 in the College Football Hall of Fame on that 79 roster, right? So we had all these stars, but we had no stars.
Right.
We had no stars, because they showed up every day. There was no entitlement. There was no like, I got this thing, I'm cool, all that. No, because they know they would call each other out. That we had so many guys, right, that no one could take. It's the issue is when you have maybe one superstar,
right,
on the team, and everyone else is like kowtowing to that person, and then that person becomes sort of entitled, and I can do whatever I want to do, I can do no harm, unless they're evolved. Unless they're evolved. So yeah, the belief will take you to, you know, heights that you could never have imagined if you can combine them with your passion and your gifts, and it takes time to build that belief.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
This is the part where we're supposed to tell people to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Okay, will you please do that then? I mean, if you enjoy it, please do.
And if you don't, do it anyways, because we need your help.
We do.
Also, we have a website called GameChangeNation.com. Just go there and subscribe, and you'll get tons of free content.
And what we're really trying to do is create a community of people that love sports.
Yep.
And the great lessons that we learn from sports, but we want to hear from you.
We do. So we're going to have a bunch of social media pages, from TikTok to Instagram to Twitter to Facebook. Instagram, I probably already said all of them. Please join them and tell us your stories. We'd love to hear from you. Oh, and we wrote a book.
Oh,
Forgot about that.
Forgot that.
The book is called Through the Tunnel. It's available on Amazon now. If you go straight down here to this link that you can see below us, you will be able to purchase it. We'd love it if you could do it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.